the further you move away from London, the better the yield, the better return, and the better the money works with the interest rate environment at the moment. London is obviously a strong rental location, but with the yields versus interest rate, the money probably doesn't work quite as well as it does in other areas currently.
Over the past few years, landlords have been leaving the private rented sector in alarming rate. The Guardian has reported 66 rental properties are leaving the private rented sector on a daily basis. Now, this is due to a number of reasons, one of them being high interest rates, low profitability, Section 24, and then you've got the added stress of working with tenants when they're in arrears. There's still impacts of COVID-19 to the court system if you want to get repossession of your property. There's reports of Section 21 being abolished. So we've seen a lot of people leaving the private rented sector or proposing to leave the private rented sector. Ourselves, we're actually looking at getting rid of all our family single buy-to-let stock. I'm actually joined by Dan standing here today from Shawbrook Bank to discuss the way around this. Is buy-to-let dead? How people are still making buy-to-let work, and how landlords are still finding success within the market. Now, welcome, Dan. Good to see you again.
Thank you, yep.
Now, what are you seeing in the market? Is buy-to-let dead?
No, I think to say buy-to-let dead it's quite a strong phrase. At Shawbrook, a lot of our book and current sort of pipeline is made up of buy-to-let. I think the points you raise about high interest rates, Section 24, are very valid and do have an impact on certain people getting into the market, but there are still opportunities out there for people to invest in the right deal, the right property, in the right location even.
So would the right location be London or the outskirts of London, or would you be looking other parts of the country?
I think the further you move away from London, the better the yield, the better return, and the better the money works with the interest rate environment at the moment. London is obviously a strong rental location, but with the yields versus interest rate, the money probably doesn't work quite as well as it does in other areas currently.
Do you anticipate if someone was to invest in London that you're still going to see the capital appreciation they may have done over the past few decades?
Yeah, I think that property is quite a safe bet at times. So yes, the values will go up and down over time, but on a whole, you tend to see you at least level out to where you were initially. I think there'll be a slight increase. Time will tell, depends what the interest rate environment looks like in sort of 12, 24 months time and how that will impact things.
So have you seen some growth areas within buy-to-let? When I mean growth areas, like areas of the country, maybe the southwest, north, east?
I think more up in the north of the country, it's a better yield, better return, but a value versus the interest rate you're paying. So I wouldn't say there was any particular sort of pocket in general, but I think more you get sort of further up the country and maybe a little bit down in, you say, in the southwest, there are better opportunities out there.
Okay. And now for these opportunities, would someone be looking for maybe a studio, 1, 2? Is it the number of bedrooms? Do they play an impact for making buy-to-let work?
Yeah, I think, it depends on your business model. If you want to have, you mentioned about your family sort of stock, as it were, sort of maybe a 3-bed terraced house in the right location on the outskirts of a town, a city, leafy sort of location, probably quite nice for a family. If you're looking more central, where you're going to have professional people living in there, maybe sort of student-y, 1, 2-bed sort of studios, are probably the right sort of option.
Now, Section 24 has played obviously an impact in people having properties in their personal names and not being able to offset all the interest if they're a higher rate taxpayer. Have you seen the impacts of that with your clients, and has this led to incorporation or landlord flight? Yeah,
look, we see incorporations quite a bit. That's not uncommon nowadays. And a lot of the applications we see now, the vast majority are in limited companies' names. So people are fully aware of obviously the rules and regulations now and adapting accordingly.
Now, Section 21, there's proposals for it to be abolished. Do you see that having an impact on the buy-to-let market?
I think, like anything that first comes out, it probably have an initial impact, why people see how it plays out. But again, long term, I think it sets out what is in place, what the rules are. People will understand how that then plays out longer term, and the market will still carry on. I think buy-to-let is an important property sort of sector.
Now, the Renters' Rights Bill, there's a white paper out on it, and it could be in place as soon as spring. Is there anything that you've seen in there that you think is a good thing, or anything that you've seeing that you think will be alarming for buy-to-let landlords?
Personally, no. I haven't delved that far into it, if I'm perfectly honest. Obviously, people like yourself that are heavily involved in that sector will know all about it. The bank will be looking at it and see how that could potentially impact how we sort of work with landlords, tenants, how the bank's risk profile looks. So yeah, it's one of those things, again, we'll see how it looks and how it could potentially impact, or how we evolve to work with it.
Now, there's some trends of people leaving the country. We've seen some talent that have been leaving, but there's areas of the country which are pretty strong for buy-to-let, this being especially in the student market. Do you see that area still growing?
Yeah, I think the student market is a massive part of the property sector. I mean, my son goes to university this year. He's still staying at home, unfortunately, so I haven't managed to get rid of him yet. But I think the property sector in that sort of student market will always be strong. You get a lot of overseas students coming over who look for the right property in the right location, good high quality stock. So I think that will definitely continue growing. I don't see it not at this moment in time.
There's a couple of strategies which I've seen people employing on LinkedIn and Instagram, highlighting the successes of it. One being serviced accommodation, the other being social housing. Now, from a bank's risk perspective, would you be comfortable with your clients basically switching to either one of those strategies?
Yeah, I think with the market as it is, people are evolving and are seeing other opportunities out there. Social housing is massive at the moment. We see a lot of inquiries, a lot of deals coming through based on that, where the council need a 6-bed HMO, for example. They put that leases in place for 5 years. You're almost guaranteed the rent for 5 years, never say never with a council, granted. Yeah. But it's a really strong market at the moment, and it's something that any bank, particularly Shawbrook now, where we're adapting our appetite and criteria and understanding of that market to make sure we're in the right place to lend in that sector, which we are doing on a daily basis now.
No, that's amazing. Is there anything else you can think of that will play an impact in buy-to-lets that we haven't discussed?
No, I think there's a lot of potential things coming in. There are things changing, which I think is normal in the buy-to-let market. I think it's becoming a lot more sort of regulated, and rightly so in certain parts. I mean, I think, again, it is just a case of they come in, there'll be that slight sort of understanding of how that impacts, and the market will continue.
I remember getting one of my earlier buy-to-lets, and there was a restriction from the buy-to-let lender at that time that I was unable to rent it to someone with local housing allowance, or I think I've actually seen pets as well. Now, this is proposed to be abolished within the Renters' Rights Bill. Is this something that you guys would find alarming?
No, I think anybody should be able to rent a property. I don't think anybody should be restricted because they're in receipt of housing association income or sort of rental, or they've got a pet. Everyone got a dog during lockdown, right? So I don't think anybody should be discriminated against to be able to rent a property. It's then, I suppose, how it plays out to banks' appetite, landlords' appetite that actually, yeah, that's fine, we can do that. And yeah, I think everyone should be able to go out.
And I think there's going to be some rights for all tenants to actually be able to, modify the house slightly in terms of putting things up, shelves, paintings, whatever. And previously, everything needed written permission from the landlord. What's the bank's views on this?
Yeah, I think from a bank's point of view, we've always been of the opinion that as long as you don't extend the property, go and knock a wall down, or structurally alter it, then it's sort of down to the landlord and tenant. I think putting some shelves up and maybe painting a room yellow instead of blue doesn't impact the bank's ability to lend or to market the property. So yeah, I think it's fair to have some sort of rules in place of what people can do.
Thank you so much for that. Now, if you've been following us, you know we specialize in residential and HMOs and commercial residential conversions. We've now amassed a portfolio consisting of over 700 tenants. Now, if you want to learn how we did this, especially on the commercial or residential area, we've actually got a free webinar on the 26th of September. The link is in the description. We hope to see you there. And if you've enjoyed this video, hit the bell icon, subscribe, and we hope to see you the following week.